a delight to extend a heartfelt welcome to each of you as we gather for the 10th lecture of the Distinguished Lecture Series at the Department of History, Presidency University, Kolkata. This series has become a hallmark of intellectual discourse, and today's event promises to be a captivating exploration into a fascinating chapter of history. Our theme for this year's lecture, Making a School of Architecture, Akbar and Fathpur Sikri, invites us to journey back in time to the Mughal era, a period of cultural affluence and architectural brilliance. The reign of Akbar the Great witnessed not only the expansion of the empire, but also a profound transformation in artistic and architectural endeavors. Fathpur Sikri, the once flourishing capital, stands as a testament to the grandeur and innovation of Mughal architecture. We are honored to have our distinguished speaker, Professor Syed Nadeem Rezavi, who is an authority on the subject, someone whose expertise promises to illuminate the intricacies of the architectural legacy of Akbar and the creation of the renowned School of Architecture at Fathpur Sikri. The insights are sure to provide us with a deeper understanding of the historical context, the cultural milieu, and the artistic ingenuity that contributed to the making of this architectural marvel. To our distinguished speaker, thank you for gracing us with your presence and sharing your wealth of knowledge. Your expertise will undoubtedly enrich our understanding and inspire a renewed appreciation for the architectural wonders of the Mughal period. Once again, a warm welcome to all of you. May this 10th Distinguished Lecture Series be a source of intellectual enrichment and scholarly inspiration. We have one small request. Please put your phones in silence or airplane mode. Now I would like to request Shiny to introduce our speaker of the day.
It is both an honor and a privilege to introduce our distinguished speaker for today, Professor Syed Nadeem Rezavi, a luminary in the field of history and an esteemed faculty member at Akbar University. Professor Rezavi is a scholar of exceptional merit, renowned for his expertise in medieval Indian history with a particular focus on the socio-cultural dynamics of the Mughal era. His extensive research and scholarly contributions have earned him both acclaim nationally and internationally, making him a respected authority in the academic community. A graduate of the prestigious Akbar Muslim University, Professor Rezavi has dedicated his career to unraveling the complexities of medieval Indian history. His research encompasses a wide range of topics, including the cultural and architectural heritage of the Mughal period, historical geography, and the intellectual traditions that flourished during this fascinating epoch. Apart from his scholarly pursuits, Professor Rezavi is an inspiring educator, having mentored numerous students who have gone on to make significant contributions in the field of history. His commitment to fostering academic excellence and a passion for historical inquiry is reflected not only in his research but also in his role as an educator. In addition to his academic responsibilities, Professor Rezavi has actively participated in academic forums, conferences, and publications, contributing valuable insights that have enriched the discourse of medieval Indian history. Today, we are privileged to have Professor Syed Nadeem Rezavi as our distinguished speaker, who will share his profound insights on the making of School of Architecture, Akbar and Fathpur Sikri. His wealth of knowledge promises to illuminate our understanding of this captivating period in history. Everyone present here, please join me in extending a warm welcome to Professor Syed Nadeem Rezavi.
Well, I think let me start by thanking Presidency University for inviting me over to deliver this lecture. I think offline, this is my second lecture which I would be giving in this very hall. I had earlier also been to this place perhaps a year back to speak on the Taj Mahal and the controversies which these days are surrounding it. I was invited to Kolkata this time for two things. One, by a society Bangla Itihas, Paschim Bangla Itihas, to speak on Jadunath Sarkar and his continued relevance even today by trying to reassess some of the positions which he had held earlier, which have now been challenged, not because Jadunath was a bad historian or anything, he was one of the greatest of the historians, but in the light of new facts which were discovered. I was also invited, and I had delivered a lecture yesterday in one of the major gala events which was taking place in your town. There was a panel on education, past, present and future, where I chose a theme which was on myth and history. In both ways, what I am going to speak tomorrow and what I spoke yesterday are interrelated. These days being the days when history is being confused more with mythology, or not even mythology, even if it had only confined itself to mythology, it would have been, we would not have been so much concerned. But today, instead of mythology, you know that Herodotus had based his history on mythologies. Today, in our country, even the mythologies are being given a short shrift, and they are being replaced by something known as mithya. Mithya is a Sanskrit term which means all things which are improbable. Yesterday I tried to find out this fact because they were discussing how to develop education, how to develop the field. I think it was basically merely a lip service which was being given. So in between, when your teacher and my student Salim asked me to come up and speak with you people, I thought that I would be selecting a theme where I might be able to discuss all these things together, and that is why I chose, and especially architecture is something which perhaps you people are already studying and are aware of. I presume that perhaps Salim himself is taking a course on Mughal architecture. So I thought that why not pay attention to that very aspect of our local past. As all of you know that in the present age, Mughals are being given a short shrift, and if you are talking about the Mughals, you are committing blasphemy. They never existed. As last year we discussed, Taj Mahal was never built by them, it was an ancient temple. So everything which is Mughal is now being challenged. even Mughal architecture in a way is being challenged. There was nothing Mughal. It was all ancient Indian traditions. I am proud of the ancient Indian traditions, of course. Who cannot be? The immense contributions which the people of ancient periods have for our development, whatever we are today, that cannot be negated, cannot be neglected. But then in that making, the Mughals too had a small role. And that is what I am going to talk about. Naturally, if today you ask me, what is Mughal architecture? If you ask me, does any feature which one encounters in the structures built during the Mughal period, which of them is exclusively Mughal in character? My answer would be that not a single thing, not a single architectural element which has been used to construct buildings during the Mughal period is actually Mughal. It is all things which were borrowed, incorporated, but worked. They were not just taken lock, stock and barrel. It was not a plagiarized form of architecture, but there were elements which were actually inspired the Mughals to take from the past and then try to add on to it and make it their own. Thus, everything which you will find reflected in the Mughal monuments are things which you will be able to find in structures which were built earlier. The only thing is that the expertise of the Mughals lay in the fact that they amalgamated everything together and gave it a new form. My slides which I am going to show you, they are lot many. If I will start elaborating and explaining all these slides which I am supposed to show here, probably it will be late evening. So you are free to stop me wherever you want. I would try to be as precise as possible. Now, when the Mughals came to India, remember they were coming not from nowhere. They were coming from a land which itself was known for its architectural traditions. So naturally, there was a lot of influence which they borrowed from their own land. So one can say that there were influences on Mughal architecture which are of foreign origin. Although to use the term foreign for a period 16th, 17th centuries is also something which people like us should avoid, because we are talking about a time where there were no national boundaries. There was no concept of a nation. There was no foreigner and there was no Indian. Everyone who came and settled in this land, they were Indians. In those times, the term which was being used, from which the Greeks and then ultimately the English, they took out gave the name to all this country as India, or the Persians, the Arabs started calling it as Hind, is nothing but a corruption of the concept that every land which is beyond a river, which was known as Sikri. So everyone who would cross the Hindu Kush, who would cross the boundaries, and come within the purview of this subcontinent, they would be labeled as Hindi. The term Hindi, the term Hindu, the term Hindustan was actually quite secular in nature. Hindi or Hindu meant people who were inhabiting the land beyond the river Sikri. The Persians and the Arabs, when they came, in fact, the Greeks, they could not pronounce Sa. I mean, that is one of the things which you will find that the difference between Rig Veda and Zendavesta, that there are a lot of names which in India start with Sa, but in the old Persian tradition, that Sa is given the form of Ha. They would pronounce it as not Sindh, they would call it as Hind. And thus the Europeans, when they came from Hind, they further corrupted it into Ind and India. Right? So we are talking about a time when there was no India as a nation. Now if you cross the Wagah border, now you are crossing into an area which is not India or Hindustan or whatever you call it. These days we are calling it Bharat. So you are outside it. But during that period of time, all those people who were migrating from one place to another, they might have some origin from where they are coming. They could also be identified by putting up the term Isfahani or this and that. But all of them who came and ultimately settled in India, they were all Hindustanis. So much so that when Nadir Shah invaded India, and you know that Nadir Shah invaded the country in 1740s, middle of the 18th century. And you also must have read that there was a great massacre which he carried out during that period in Delhi, while standing where? On the top of a mosque and guiding his troops to massacre the people out here. And what does Nadir Shah call the Mughal ruler and the Mughal ruling elite? Hinduane Kalma Go. He doesn't call them Muslims. He doesn't identify them as anything else, but Hinduane Kalma Go. Those Indians who also recite Kalma. Right. This was the situation till 1740. So, till 18th century, the term Hindu or whatever it is, that did not stand for a particular nation. That term was never used for a community. That's a very modern development. So when Babur came to the country, he had seen the architecture of places like Samarkand. And if you read Baburnama, and now you are fortunate enough that Baburnama has been translated by many people into English. It was translated during the 19th century by certain bureaucrats who were living in New York City. Beveridge's translation, one of the very authentic translation. But then, more recent, after the Tora Bora Hills and after the Laden and Afghan wars, there were Americans who took up the job of once again translating Baburnama. And so we are lucky enough, that now you have a number of translations which are easily available for you to read. And if you read it, you will find that Babur, when he crossed into the country, he was still ruined about the buildings which he had seen in Samarkand. In fact, he wants those structures to be replicated within the territory which he was holding. But the same Babur, when he goes towards Gwalior, you read that account. He admires that architecture. He admires it so much that what we find is that he ends up, you remember that he has only 4 years to his credit, not even 4 years, 3.5 years. But during this period, when he was in Hindustan, he started recruiting those stone cutters of Indian origins, is a modern term which I am using, those stone cutters who had made palaces of Gwalior and all, carved the stone structures which are still present for you to sometime do visit Gwalior and see those palaces. So he not only praises them, but he recruits those people of this region, Agra, Delhi region. So much so that in Babarnama he mentions that he recruited more than 30,000 artisans of the country who were all involved in creating structures which were constructed during this period of time. When he came to India, before he encountered the traditions which were known in this particular area, in this subcontinent, he came not only with soldiers, but he also came along with architects. At least 2 architects are mentioned in Babarnama. One Central Asian, one Iranian, who had accompanied him when he crossed over and became the ruler of this country. One of them was Mirza Ghias. He is mentioned in Babarnama. Perhaps one of the first Mughal structure which was constructed on the modern Indian soil was a structure very near to the battlefield where he had boasted Ibrahim. Today, that structure is known as Kabuli Bagh Mosque in Panipat. It is known as Kabuli Bagh because the area where this development had taken place, to the locals, it started appearing as if they are standing in Kabul because a new type of building structures were getting shaped out there. So till date, that whole neighborhood is known as Kabuli Bagh area. Today, if you go there, there is no garden, no Bagh. Although Babar mentions that a large garden Bagh, Chahar Bagh, was constructed, and within that Chahar Bagh, he ordered the construction of a mosque, which today is known as the Kabuli Bagh Mosque. The architect of that structure was Mirza Ghias, the one who had accompanied him. But who were those who were actually carrying out the work of construction? They were not Central Asians, they were not Iranians, they were not Mughals, they were not Turks. They were all people of that very area who had been recruited, hired to work on these structures. And because, if you use the modern term that they were all Indians, they were all those who had been trained in the art of how buildings were constructed, say from very ancient times till the time that they were there. Even today, I don't know in Bengal, but in my place where I come from, I speak Hindi or Hindustani or Urdu, whatever you call it. Still, when the women take up the work of sewing clothes, they start, asking, "Kitne ungal kapda le?" What is ungal? A measurement which dates back to the Vedic period. But is your mother aware that she is harking back to the Vedic tradition? No. That is something which is ingrained with it. And that is why that unconsciously that tradition is continuing till date. So imagine during the period when Babar starts his constructional activities with people who are belonging to this particular region, when they are asked to create that structure, what were the traditions? They knew the traditions of the old. Because that was inherent. There were no colleges of technology or architecture existing during that period of time. Family to family, those traditions would be transferring, so they were well aware of. But the major design, the design which is given by an architect, when you plan a house, there are a number of masons who come to build. But there is, after all, an engineer, an architect, who makes the plan, how to make it. The architect was Mirza Beyaz, the central vision. So he visualized the building with domes and things, how to build it, how high it should be, blah, blah, blah. But the work of execution was being done by people who were well versed in the Indian traditions. Net result was that the resulting building was having traditions belonging both to Central Asia and to India. Just like the Quwwatul Islam Mosque, which had been built earlier. Babur keeps on harking about the monuments at Samarkand. He is harking back to those magnificent structures of Central Asia. And one distinguishing feature of the Timurid or Central Asian, whatever name you give to it, that was the monumentality, large, big sizes. Now, for example, I am giving you a structure here which belongs to the Khorasan region, Iran. Big structures, large gateways. I don't know, you are not old enough to remember that when the controversy about Babri Masjid was going on, there were many historians who would say that the design of the Babri Masjid is based on Sharqi architecture. Why? Because there is a big, grand, central portal, a typical feature of the Jaunpur architecture. Actually, it is not Jaunpur. Neither Babur nor any one of them, earlier Mughals, had visited Jaunpur. They were harking back to structures like this. Look at the monumental gateway. So that gateway, which now you find in Jaunpur, is also a feature of Central Asian architecture without them knowing so. So when the buildings started being made by the Mughals, there were certain features with which they were aware and they incorporated them into their own structures. Look at another, this is the tomb of Timur himself. Look at the big portals, which are monumental buildings, domes, high domes. This is the place, the burial, where the burial of Timur himself. There are certain features which you will find missing in India: the use of turquoise, ceramic tiles on the top. Mostly, they are also there in Mughal architecture, but not in such profusion as you find here. But pay attention to the look. Right? Another. In this slide you have people standing. Look at the monumentality of these structures. Compare it with Buland Darwaza. Not of Babur, but of Akbar. A period when Mughal school of architecture had started. Babur just had Central Asian architects. He had certain people from Indian families who were involved in the construction. They were unconsciously doing it. But by Akbar's period, there was a whole school, a particular tradition which was being fixed, where there was collaborative work. A number of people of various traditions joining in hands. The end result is that there are certain shifts, but none of us visits it. it's in congested, lanes and by lanes. It's not very easy to go there. And that is the gateway of a monument at Samarkand. This is the gateway of Humayun's Mosque at Agra. You see the comparisons between them, the same type of constructions. Okay. We know that in India, prior to the coming of the Turks, it was the Trabeate style which was prevalent. Trabeate, I think, perhaps all of you know that Trabeate is, I will not explain. The Trabeate form is that where the weight of the entire ceiling is resting on the pillars. So that is why things tend to fall down. When I was a child, I remember many of my family members proudly saying, हमारी मस्जिदें तो बड़ी ऊंची ऊंची होती हैं, मंदिर घुटे घुटे होते हैं, constricted because they are all pillared structures. You cannot give much height to a pillar construction. You cannot build such structures as you are sitting in by having a Trabeate roof. You need pillars to support it. Right? So naturally, all those old buildings were built. When Turks came to India, when similarly as happened in the case of the Mughals, same issue cropped up when new structures were being built after coming of the Turks into India. And by the period that Qutbuddin Aibak started building at the place where he had conquered the region in the Qutb complex, and you find that it is a mosque, but just like in the old traditions, pillar construction, Trabeate roofs and pillar constructions. They got an arch because just like in the case of Mir Abbas, who was the architect even earlier, the orders were given by a Central Asian architect. You have to create an arch. The poor guys never knew how to make an arch. They were only knowing about Trabeate style. And one of the features by transforming from Trabeate to arcuate is known as corbelling, false arch. So they gave the shape of an arch, but used the same technique. The only thing is now there is no single piece of stone which is resting heavily on the pillars. It is stepped, which they have kept it so that you get the form of an arch. All these developments are taking place before the coming of the Mughals. To give the height, sometimes one pillar shaft was placed on the top of the other to give the height. बनाने वाले तो बेचारे they don't know how to make them. So they improvise, and that is what they were doing. Look at the domes. Conical. Because once again they were not knowing the art of making an arch. They were going the corbelling way, so that a pyramidal form was given to it. But then all those structures were built, but with the help of the Indian craftsmen. There are Quranic verses. You can see there in the Qutb Minar. The poor so-called Hindu artisan never knew Arabic or Persian or the script. He was given a design without knowing, he just carved it. He carved it whatever design was given. So, and you go and look at these original pieces of stone, either at Qutb Minar or in any of the Mughal monuments later on, the names of the architects or the masons which are given there, none of them is a Muslim. All the names which are mentioned are of indigenous people. And none of the inscriptions where these names have been written, they are in Farsi or Arabic. They wrote Arabic, beautiful Fathpur, because that was the design which had been supplied to them and they copied it. But when they themselves had to write it, they wrote it in the Indian scripts, Nagari. So all the names which you would find of the Masons, they are the names of non-Muslims, and the script in which they are written, that is Nagari script, and none of the Arabic script is used in giving them, reflecting that all these monuments were joint collaborative works. Other developments took place at Ajmer. After every few years, they would learn new tricks. I'm not going into the details of all those things. This is the Arhai Din Ka Jhopda Mosque. Once again, for the Sultanate period, it's a vast improvement within a few years from the structures which the same people had created at Quwwatul Islam Mosque. All traditions are being experimented and added. And then you see how the height has been what I was talking about. In India, there were certain arches. Even in Harappan civilization, we do find that there is the arch. In stupa, in Buddhist architecture, you have that shape of the horseshoe type chat there, reflected in one of the early buildings in Multan, brick construction in Multan, the same old chaitya design being, and it's a tomb of a holy man. Again in Multan. Now you find emerging, when the mixing is taking place over a period of time, many more developments start taking place. I am not mentioning any of these. I said that there are certain examples of blue tile work, turquoise tile work. They are there in the subcontinent, but far and wide. Coming to the Mughal architecture, by this time, all those traditions which had been borrowed from the Indian and the foreign, by now they had been amalgamated together, and certain new trends were now emerging. By now, by Tughlaq period, the architects were well versed in making arches and domes. I don't know whether you know it or not. All of you must have been told that Akbar the Great was the first to recruit the non-Muslims into service, and he was a man of sulhul blah blah blah. Great man, no doubt. But Alauddin Khilji, you might have seen a movie which was made where he was shown almost as an animal. The finance minister of that person was a non-Muslim. And that non-Muslim finance minister, who was an expert in arithmetic, expert in geometry, because without the knowledge of these you cannot make coins. He was an expert, coin minter also. He wrote a number of works which survive. The Sultanate sources do not elaborate on him. His own works tell us something about him, and all those works are in Sanskrit. And he mentions for the first time how to make a dome or an arch. And from then on, If you start looking at the Sultanate monuments, now corbelling is done away with and archway style enters. You know that Khalji period is known as the period when arcuate buildings were being constructed. You had a minister, a finance minister, who was also an architect, a mint master, who in his Sanskrit works, writing for the Indians, those who are living there knowing only Sanskrit, how to build it. He is giving formulas, how to build a dome, how many bricks are needed, what angles are needed. And thus, by Tughlaq period, that started under Alauddin, but by Tughlaq period, you have domes proper. In a number of monuments, you also get double domes, where there is a hollow in between. If you see the building from outside, the dome is large, but if you are standing within, you have a second layer, the inner layer, which is as per the dimension of the dome. So it doesn't appear as if you are sitting in a bed. And from outside, it doesn't appear that there is a very small dome on the top. So you have actually two domes, one on top of the other, comprising one, which was ultimately perfected at the Taj. But that tradition started during the Mughal period. But that was something which only the Sultan and very rich people did. Almost all the other structures which were built, even by some of the lesser sultans, they had such type of domes, which are known as Lodi domes. You might have seen a cup, you just invert it and put it like this, without a proper neck. So when the Akbari buildings were started, it was that Lodi style dome which was preferred, because that was how the domes were being built by the Hindu masons of India. So what so far I have tried to say is very simple, that Mughal architecture owed a lot to the earlier traditions, whether Central Asian or to the internal schools of art. They might be from Malwa, they might be from Gujarat, they might be from Bengal. A lot of Bengali features are part of the Mughal architecture, so on and so forth. So what we find is that there is a great synthesis of all the traditions, indigenous and foreign, which actually form what is today known as Mughal architecture. Now let us see this building. A four-centered arch. It is an arch which we do not encounter during the Sultanate period. Before Akbar's period, or in fact, till Akbar's period, you can say, this type of an arch, which is four-centered arch. I mean, if you take four balls, you keep them. So if you try to rotate this, it will not go like this. It would be one circle like this, then another one, a geometrical circle on the top that would form the arch, expanded arch, a little fatter one, much longer. This was the Iranian arch, the typical Iranian. But from Akbar's period onwards, no one calls it as Iranian. It is now known as the Mughal arch. Naam Mughal hai. When I started with, I said that there is no particular architecture element which is actually Mughal. It is Persian, but built so many times that now every scholar of architecture identifies it as Mughal. Like double dome is a precursor to the dome which we are going to find at the Taj. There is a heavy, massive inner dome which is the real architectural dome, because the weight of the ceiling is being held by it, but on the top of that is another shell, just like an egg shell, which is thin and almost weightless, which is of marble. In between, there is a hollow space. So, double dome. Remember the architect of this building, Miracle, the one who came along with Babur, now executing the first real Mughal structure at Delhi. Half dome entrances. Your door is what? There is a lintel, you cross and come. But what these entrances, as at the Humayun's tomb, is that you take a ball, cut it into two, slice it into two, and you then have a curvature which is within. Now that was one of the type of entrances, half dome entrance, which starts with the tomb of Humayun, which is again borrowed from Central Asia and Iran. It is not encountered in the Indian subcontinent. And everything from Babur's period are placed within garden settings. The Chahar, 4-quarter club, something which for the first time is mentioned by Babur in his Babur. He knows when he comes to Delhi or at Agra that this country lacks a number of things, and one of them is that these 4-quarter typical symmetrical gardens are missing from India. I mean, what is a 4-quarter garden? If you make a design, squares, just like on a graph paper. So if you expand that graph paper, what will happen? The same design which is here would be reflected on the other side. It's just an elaboration of the same symmetry. If there is something built here, if you take the impression and make it like this, same thing would come at the exact location at the other. That was the Mughal garden. In the lifetime of a person, it used to be a place of pleasure. In fact, Timur, the person who had constructed the Samarkand, never lived in his palaces, not a single night. They were built for beauty. He would always live in gardens created outside, open spaces. So, the Timurid garden, the Chahar Bagh, was the place. It was not only a place. Today, what is a garden? We go in the evenings. Lovers meet there. But to the Mughals, garden was the place. With water flowing in between, I'll show you this slide. In between there would be a big pause or a pavilion, a pleasure house. But once the person died, his mausoleum would be constructed in the middle of that. Look at it, look at Humayun's Maqbara. Look at Safdarjung. All these structures, they are laid out within the garden. Basically, the central place where the central pond or whatever fountain or whatever they had visualized, that was being replaced by it. Now, this very design was also from the period of Akbar, giving shape to entire towns. For example, if you look at the plan of Fathpur Sikri, it is in the form of a garden. Open spaces with squares filled up with built structures. No time to explain. Now, on both the sides, what I am showing is the development of Agra. When Babur comes, he encounters a tradition, Indian tradition. You can say a Brahminical tradition. And what was that? that the left bank of the river was inauspicious. You cannot build on the left bank. What is the left and right of a river? You stand facing the flow of the river. So the side which is on the left is known as left, the other one is right. Every construction would be on the right side. So when he came to Agra, conquered the city, the Lodi city and the ancient city was on the right side. The left side was totally bare. Rugged ground and nothing else. No one would go and live there. Sharp lag jayega, mar jayega. They won't. So that was the space in which Babur starts building. And what did he ask to build? Gardens. Today, Babur is known for his mosques. Perhaps the only mosque in his entire life was the one at Fathpur. There are hundreds of gardens which we have. No one talks about that. Babur, masjid. No. One guy, in fact, Ayodhya, he perhaps was not even aware that what is Ayodhya and what is the mosque which is being built. The only mosque which was built is at Tafi. Otherwise, it is the gardens. You can see that both sides of the rivers, left bank and the right bank, they were built over. Later on, Babur's gardens were replaced by the gardens of Akbar and Jahangir and Shah Jahan and later on and so on and so forth. But till date, if you go and excavate those regions, like Akbar has tried to work in her book on the Taj, this plan is borrowed from there, and that is based on the map of Agra, which is there at City Palace Museum, Jaipur. Mirza Raja Jai Singh, the second. Jai Singh Sawai. 1740s. He was also the Subadar of a number of Mughal towns. And wherever he would go, wherever he was transferred, he would within that town create Jai Singh Puras, neighborhoods named after him. Right. And wherever he was placed as the governor, he would also ask his ateliers to make a map of that place. So this is a map of the city of Agra in 1740s or 50s. And in that you can find all those, gardens which still survive at Agra, in modern Agra. All of them are depicted in, on both the sides of the curves of the river, which is there. When Akbar started constructing his Fathpur Sikri, he took all these traditions together. Now this is the modern cartographic plan of the, Akbari city of Fathpur Sikri. In fact, people call it the plan of the city of Fathpur. To me, it is just a plan of the palaces of Fathpur, because the entire city is now taken up by fields with wheat and sugarcane and bajra and whatnot. And within them, if you go and survey, you will find the remnants of various quarters of Akbar's period. But what is depicted here are only the imperial quarters and imperial structures. And as I said, I will explain later on that in its construction, two things were taken into architecture. One, the Chahar Bath, and second, this concept of the Mughal encampment. When the Mughals were on the move, they were peripatetic in nature. They would never settle at one place. As I said, I informed you that Timur would always live in tent cities constructed within the garden. Why? Why were the Mughals always on the move? Were the gypsies? Were they unaware about what a city is? Well, Samarkand is built by Temple. No. They would do so for the same reason that Muhammad bin Tughlaq was forced to create a second capital in Devgiri. To control a place, you need to be contacted with that area. And the best way for that would be if you keep traveling and visiting that place. Remember what Alauddin did? He campaigned in the Deccan. Right? Malik Dinar, or what was his name, this general who actually said, Malik Hazar Dinar. He had been said, what happened? Deccan didn't become a part of the Delhi Sultanate. Because as soon as the army would leave, they would revolt and become independent. You had to permanently base yourself there. Why did Sher Shah Suri build so many sarais and roadways? Not for our purpose. Public work, no, it was not a public work. It was a military work. So that the army could easily go from one place to another. Sarais were not meant for people like you, me, to go and stay there while traveling. We could also stay there, but basically as military cantonments. So that was the purpose. Why the Mughals would keep on moving, Timurids would keep on moving from place to place. Lahore was the capital, Agra was the capital, Delhi was the capital. Wherever the emperor was, Mughal sources would call it Darus Sultanate, the capital. Even if it's a small village, even it is no village, but in the middle of nowhere, but a Mughal encamped city out there. An emperor, when he would be moving, he would not be moving with 40 or 50 people. An entire city would be only him. Why? All the nobles, the military commanders, the bureaucrats, all of them, bus. They needed to be fed. Shopkeepers, they would fall in. Physicians. There was a large number of animals, veterinaries. You name it, and that profession was there. You need for the horses Nalband, a person who would be an iron smith, swords, all type of weapons. You need. So, in fact, more than 10,000, 15,000 people would be moving from place to place. And when the night fell and when they had to set up tents, what would happen if so many of you go unplanned? There would be a chaos. So they had traditions. Tradition number one, that there would be an advance party who would go to a place which can be covered in 1 day's distance. There they would fix up a pole, a large pole with fire lit on that, so that everyone who's moving, he knows this is the place where the tent is being fixed. And just below that, Akash Diya, an Indian lamp. Just besides that would be the place reserved for the tent where the Sultan or the Emperor would be meeting the people. Diwane-Am. Just very near to the Diwane-Am. How come that the Emperor would have to walk such a long distance? No, it should be very close by. So just beyond that would be the area where there would be a tent for the Emperor. You remember that this is the time when there is a segregation of male and female. So around the Emperor there would be the quarters of the princes. And beyond that would be the area for the Haram. Haram means sacred. Who would be surrounding all this imperial, family from any onslaught. And how would these military commanders, if say all of you are military commanders, all of you would have your place as per your position. A Mansabdar of 7,000 would be nearer. Mansabdar of 5,000 would be after. A person having a rank of 50-50, he would have a place, and all of them have to be fed. So, bazaars, markets, how to place them? They would be placed on the corners so that they are accessible to the people of every category. Corner where Lambi Sadak, that is, those from inside they can visit there, those who are farthest off they can, and on all the four corners, so that people visit on all the sides. This was the tradition. I am giving you a concise story. That was a Mughal encampment. Go and see the plan of Fathpur. Look at the placement of the bazaars. Look at the placement of the, look at the establishments. Look at the places where nobles are located. Look at the places where the emperor was living. Even the room of the emperor where he would sleep, Khwabgah, just like in a tent city. I was talking about gardens. The garden of Akbar at Kabul, a place where he is buried. You see that on that side there is a sort of a pavilion. This side another pavilion, and then in the corner there is a mosque-like structure in the open. All open within the garden, no grand structure. This is how the tomb construction starts from Babur. It ends with Aurangzeb once again. Now not within a garden, he is not so nature loving, but within a khanqah, a religious place as per his nature. But once again, not a monumental structure, open structure, only a simple way. So the first and the last Mughals were in the same fashion. But what I am talking about is that this Mughal garden, which I am stressing again and again, became the hallmark feature of Mughal garden, whether of the town itself or to the individual buildings which were being constructed. You can see the garden around the Taj. It is generally said that the Taj is actually located on the side of the garden. You might have read in almost all the books that all the other Mughal structure of the tombs are in the middle of the garden, and the Taj it is on the side near the river. Actually, it is not in the side because the construction continues on the other side. So you look at the plan on the top. It's actually a continuation from one side to other, and in the exact middle is the home. But even if you take it in an isolated form, even then, a bit perspective is trying to be given. You might have sometimes wondered if you have gone to Taj. It's such a massive structure. But when you see it first after entering into the gate, it appears to be very feminine. Nazo floating in the air. The massiveness is not perceptible to you just because of its particular seat. If you reduce the size of the garden in the front, the massiveness will hit you. You remove it and give it a perspective so that when you view it from the little distance, then you get the entire shock of the view, which otherwise would be missing. even from the other, when you see a smaller garden out there. But even from there, the same perspective would be found. So you view the Taj from either side of this garden, the same type of view you get. This is the type of the tent arrangement which I was talking about earlier. How the tent cities. This is taken from Akbar of Abul Fazl. I have already explained. You can only see the Akash Diya, a pyramidal type of a thing, which is denoting the high pole with, like at Fathpur Sikri, the Akash Diya is also the 0 milestone. What is 0 milestone? The last milestone from where the counting starts. You reach there, you are living. Right? You say that Kolkata is 20 kilometers away. 20 kilometers from where? Because 20 kilometers for a city like Kolkata means you have entered Kolkata. The cities around you and the stone reach 20 kilometers. Why? Because all the measurements are being taken from a particular point. Right? That particular point is the point which is very near facing the Palace of the And that 0 milestone where this Akash Diya was constructed at Fathpur Sikri, because now everything has been turned from wood to stone, it was replaced by what is today known as Hiran. It marks that now you are in the center, and from there straight you enter into the palace. If you ever go to Fathpur Sikri, stand at Hiran Minar, look at one side, there is Agra Darwaza, on the other side Ajmer Darwaza. If you have some measurement thing, go and measure the distance. It's exactly easy. If you go without any measuring tools, you go to Ajmeri Darwaza because still it is not being used as a modern road. So there you would find that the Mughal road still survives, and there is a straight line given by bricks in the exact middle of the Ajmeri Darwaza. On both the sides you have particular design. In the middle there is a rib of stone, and you stand just in line with that. You will find that the alignment is such that the Hiran Minar will come exactly below. So particular care of measurements are being taken, and it is through this entire system that the city is being planned at Fathpur Sikri. These are the various placements which I was talking about. Even the European travelers, they also give this plan of these Mughal encampments. It is not only Abul Fazl. Sometimes people like Sanjay Subramaniam and others, you give too much importance to the Persian sources. So even the non-Persian sources are giving us exactly the same. The structures in a tent city, again borrowed from Abul Fazl, sketches from Abul Fazl's Kolkata. And you find that there is one structure, double story, as I mentioned about before. This is an aerial view of Fathpur Sikri. Actually, I don't have time to go into the details of everything, but whatever discussions I have done, you will find reflected in them. Now, all those Mughal cities and buildings, they had certain plans on which they were based. For example, there was one very popular plan which finds reflection in the entire Mughal period, starting from Humayun's tomb, ending with the tomb of Safdar. And that is a plan which is known as Hasht Bahisht plan. In Hasht Bahisht in Persian means eightfold. 8 Hasht Bahisht, heavens. In English, that plan is known as Noni Part. A plan based on 9. In Farsi it is 8. In English it gets 9. Why? Because as you can see here, there is a chamber in the center, surrounded by 8 other chambers, 4 octagonal, 4 rectangular. So 4 plus 4, 8, and in the center. So as if Hasht Bahisht, a central chamber around which 8 stars are circulating. So whether you call it Hasht Bahisht or you call it Noni Part, this was the preferred as far as the Goa is concerned. But if you start looking at the sources, and if you ever attend my class on medieval India, I would say I need you to base on primary source material. Tell us which source. None of the Mughal sources mentions Hasht Bahisht plan by name. The plan is not mentioned by name. It is not. It is a term borrowed from Iran because it was coming from there. So, because Iranian sources call it Hasht Bahisht, Persian English, so we also call it as. In English, it is translated. The only reference to this plan is given in a source belonging to Humayun's period, which is known as Kanun-e-Humayuni, Khwandvin, who is writing about the various rules and regulations of Humayun's period. Now, he, in Kanun-e-Humayuni, mentions that Humayun ordered that in river Jamuna, a boat contraption should be created, a conglomeration of boats, which he calls as Hasht Jannah. Hasht 8, sometimes in Persian it is Bahisht, at other times it is known as Jannah, same using. And what was that? 4 boats were taken and they were tied to each other by rectangular ramps. The boats, each of these boats was double story. And the platforms, double story platforms on these boats, they were octagonal. And on the top was a kiosk, a dormitory. So what we have is that all the rectangular, the octagonal corners, they are double storied with a domical top. All the sides, they are rectangular, they are single storied. In between is created an octagonal central pool, which in Humayun's Maqbara is turned into the burial chamber. So this was the type of a boat which was constructed, which was named Hasht Jannah, and it is the only place where this name has been used. But if you compare that plan with the plan of Humayun's Maqbara, it is exactly the same. 4 octagons joined together with rectangular fillings in between. The rectangular ones are single storied. The octagonal chambers, double storied. The same you will find reflected in Humayun's. 4 different small octagons joined together, and those rectangular sides given with arched openings, half dome openings. The same plan, known as Hush Bridge, is also replicated in the Buland Darwaza. It is not only at Mayun's tomb, it is not only at other tombs, as I said, till Safdarjung, but it is also in gateways. The only thing is that the entire octagon is now being sliced into 2 parts, and only one part is represented. If you look at the Buland Darwaza from the back side, it is as if that it has been cut. The entire thing is fully visible from the front with the same arrangements. If you duplicate it, the entire octagon will be complete. This is the shape, just divide it from in the middle and you get the Buland Darwaza. Here it is the Hada Mahal, one of the palaces at Fathpur. Sometimes this plan is also used not only in octagonal structures but also in square and rectangular structures. This is one of the buildings where it is used. Another structure which doesn't appear to be a proper octagon, still the same. For example, here, this is the internal plan. From outside, it appears to be just square. It is not with small chamferings on the sides. The internal arrangement is the same. The Hush Bridge plan. In fact, including the Taj and Safdarjung, this is the plan which is actually found in almost all the buildings. The most preferred plan among the buildings. Look at how the octagon has been. In Akbar's period, as all of you know, that it is the red sandstone which is being prepared. Ash layering is done. The structure is not built of red sandstone. They are with bricks. It is only on the top that ash layering has been done with red sandstone, which is taken to be the interior. And then another feature which is found in Akbari architecture is that although from outside it would appear to be trabeate, look at it. They appear to be trabeate. But actually there is a combination of architecture. Thirdly, there is invocation of wood architecture. I mean, for example, pay attention, it's not very clear, but pay attention to the brackets. No, when this is a concrete structure, do you need brackets here? No, you don't need brackets. This is a stone structure, do you need a bracket there? No. Bracket is only needed where you are. There are wooden features which are being joined. But the Akbari architect is still invoking those old traditions of the Mughal encampment by extra placement of brackets as if they are holding the roof, and there was no need. There was no need of these brackets. And then, as I said, that there were certain features of pillars which are used. They are generally square or many-sided, and with the use of eaves, which was an Indian, eaves and brackets. And then within the building themselves, inside the buildings, apart from some carvings, there is the use of frescoes and murals, wall paintings. In Akbar's period, they are in the form of miniature paintings. For example, here also you can see the face of a woman. Here I don't know whether it is clear to you or not. There is an entire portrait of a Mughal noble with a kalvi on his head, a dark complexioned face, or perhaps a Rajput. You can look at his tunic, pointed cloth, a typical type of tunic which was preferably worn by the Rajputs, not by the Muslim nobles of Akbar's period. Rajput nobles of Akbar's period. That is what is reflected here on the walls of the place. So let me sum up that this is how the entire city with individual structures were actually conceived and built at Fathpur Sikri. These are only half the slides which are part of the entire presentation, but I think this much is enough for you to understand what all the Mughal architecture actually was. Simply put in one sentence, the Mughal architecture, which includes not only individual buildings like tombs and mosques and temples. I'm sorry, I don't have time now to go on to those slides which also show the mosques which were built during the period. Generally, teachers of architecture miss out. सलीम साहब ने आपको मॉस्क आर्किटेक्चर पढ़ाया होगा, टूम आर्किटेक्चर पढ़ाया होगा, काम इनका टेम्पल आर्किटेक्चर पे भी है, वो शायद ही इंट्रोड्यूस किया होगा तो बड़ी बात है. Generally, look at every stalwart of Mughal architecture. They would talk about palaces, they would talk about tombs, they would talk about everything but temples. Because temple is something which is related with ancient. A large number of temples were also constructed during the period of Mughals. I would end my lecture by two things. I won't show you these slides now because otherwise I will keep on doing on and on and on. I'll just point out two things which you can understand. One, that among the famous temples, actually Delhi is one city where more than 100 medieval temples exist from the Mughal period. Very recently, William Dalrymple's son, I've forgotten his name.
Samuel Dalrymple.
Sam Dalrymple have started a survey of those temples, something which we historians should have done. Jain temples, Vaishnava, Shaivite, and others is and all of them are functioning temples. But unfortunately, some of them within the Havelis, home temples, and also individual standing, all constructed, some of them with the grant of the Mughals. There are a large number of documents which survive, which note down which tell us about the grants which were given to Mathura temples, Vrindavan temples, temples in Punjab, temples elsewhere. I'm not naming any of them, I'll just refer to you that please read one of the recent works of Professor Irfan Ali on Vrindavan documents, a book published by Primus, where you will find innumerable documents mentioned which tell us about the grants which were given by Mughal rulers from Akbar to Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb is known only for destruction of temples. Yes, he did destroy temples, there is no doubt. No one can deny it. No one can falsify history. No one can paint a color which was not there. But along with that are also facts which are generally not mentioned by historians. Akbar gave a large number of lands. Everyone knows. Jahangir gave independent grants. They are known. Shah Jahan, in one of the document in the grants given to a temple, gives a statement that the grant is being given for the lightening of the diya in the temple because that is parastisha ilahi, because that is the worship of God. So these are all rules. Aurangzeb does not compete with any of them in the number of grants which were given during this time. They were far less than what the grants given by the other emperors were. But he accepts in the grant that if you look to his entire reign, all the grants which had been given by Akbar or Jahangir or Shah Jahan, they are reconfirmed by Aurangzeb. So his own grants may be less, but if you take into account the entirety of the grants, money which was being given to the temples, it was larger than what had been given in the individual capacities by Akbar or Jahangir or Shah Jahan. But he was also a person who destroyed a large number of temples. Another fact which I would like to mention, which is not generally mentioned by historians, is that a typical Mughal mosque, you must have heard about and seen the photographs, if not visited the mosque at Fathpur, Sikri, the mosque of Shah Jahanabad, Jama Masjid, Delhi. You must have seen the photographs of the Lahore Mosque, Badshahi Mosque of Lahore. Incidentally, Badshahi Mosque of Lahore was constructed by Shah Jahan, by Aurangzeb, and that is the most beautiful mosque if you take all the mosques together. Right? Now, all these mosques have a typical form, which forces me, just like it forces certain other scholars also, to call the Mughal mosques as Templar mosques. Mosques which are having characteristic features of temple architecture. How? When I speak to Muslim audiences, I wait for brickbats. Because now, he's saying that mosques are in the form of temples. It must be a comedy. I am throwing an open challenge. Any of you sitting here, teacher or student or anybody, show me one mosque outside the Indian subcontinent which is triple dome. They are either single dome or have multiple domes. Kabuli Bagh Mosque of Babur, with which I started, is made by a Central Asian architect at a time when the mixing is yet to take place. It's a typical Central Asian mosque. It has 9 domes. None of the other Mughal mosques has 9 domes. All of them started from Fathpur, Sikri down to Lahore's, Aurangzeb's mosque. They are all triple dome. Just like you have the Trinity in Hinduism, and at large number of places you will find triple shikharas of the temples. You have Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. So there would be this. Second, the middle dome, central dome, is higher. The other domes are. So there is a hierarchical. If you approach a mosque, you approach from below, ground. You climb a few steps, you reach the courtyard level, and you enter through a portal. Right? Then, at the point where the courtyard finishes and the prayer chambers start, another number of steps, which takes you into the prayer chamber. Within the prayer chamber, which is rectangular, there are 3 compartments, all open. The nave and the aisle. The nave is having a higher ceiling with a larger dome. The 2 aisles, they are at a lower level with lower domes. This, concept of Indian hierarchy. Once again, I would ask you, go anywhere in the world, before the Mughals, of course after the Mughals, this style was also followed elsewhere also. Before the Mughals, show me any place where such mosques were created. Where there was, this connectivity with the Indian system. Unconscious. I'm not saying that the mullah was so influenced by Lord Brahma that he would give him higher things. No. It is an unconscious borrowing, just like when I gave you the example of Ungal. Just like that. They are not conscious what they are doing. In my city, from where I come, I have a mosque on the gate of which you must have seen in the temples that there is a pot. On the top is the coconut. All around are the leaves of the mango leaves. A typical Indian feature. In that mosque, which is very near to my house, the same thing, the poor guys never know that they are borrowing it from those whom they hate. So, it is duplicated down here. These borrowings are when you start living together. They are not because your religion is superior or inferior, or that you are getting influenced by a certain type of spirituality. It only shows that it is a place where there is a harmonious relationship between both, and you are taking them just as features. My last sentence would be, as students of architecture, please don't start giving religion to architectural elements. Arch and dome are not Islamic. Trabient is not Hindu. The chain and bell motif is not temple. Just like the Quranic verse or the name of Allah is not Muslim. If you go to Kumbalgarh, you find that minaret with the name of Allah carved all around. When other gods are being invoked, why not also invoke Allah? As simple as that. It was not the, under the overawing influence of the Muslims. No, it is just a simple God. Similarly, when you find chain and bell motif within the palace of Akbar, in the Gujarat, today Gujarat is very important. Almost all the Gujarat mosques, you will find temple features. They are not temple features, they are architectural features of a particular place. Akbar, when he started developing his school of architecture, he was not taking into account religious traditions. He was taking into account the architectural traditions of the various regions over which he was reigning. And the beauty of Mughal architecture was that it was reflecting the architectural elements of various traditions irrespective of their religion. Incidentally, remember, Dome is not Islamic, it is Greek. It is before Islam that it all started. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Akbar. I am a PhD scholar from this university. My question to you is the expression that you used in the beginning of your lecture when you were saying that Mughal architecture is not a plagiarism in architecture. So I wonder, what do you mean by this phrase? Because you mentioned that they have already borrowed so many images and made them their own. So if you talk about plagiarism in architecture, what do you mean?
If you check the dictionary meaning of the term plagiarism, it means that you borrow something with the intention of robbery and calling it Rezavi. Number one. Number two, when you are plagiarizing, you are copying it verbatim without properly understanding. I would give you the example of the Lucknow architecture. There also you have borrowings from various religions, Islamic religions, Mohammedan religions, Christian theories, but all of them have been integrated in a manner which reflects that the architect was actually not aware how to use one feature at what place. It was just blind, picking and mixing with something with which it would never gel, and calling it as his own. The Mughal architect was also inspired by a number of traditions. But when he is using them, he is also improvising them. I'll give just one example because of shortage of time. I said that, and I also showed you certain slides, that there was a heavy use of Trabeate style in Akbari buildings. What is a Trabeate? A Trabeate is a style where the weights of the stone fall on the top of the wall or the base, right? Generally, Trabeate, whether it is in the ancient period or even during the Tughlaq period, there is no relationship with the building and the size of the stone. There is a heaviness because the architect actually is not aware about the geometry of the construction. A Mughal bridge, for example, is a reflection of that. It was created for a bullock cart, but even heavy trucks can pass over the same bridge today, right? So you look at any Tughlaq building, I'm not going into ancient, massive stones. Even the eaves, they are quite heavy, large pillars. In Akbari structures, there is a slenderness. The architect knows about the weights and measures. How much weight could the ceiling of this particular pillar bear? So the extra layers are now scraped off and there is slenderness. Radiate is there, but in a new form. Right? Similarly, in other features also, they are borrowed. Yes, that four-quarter arch is an Iranian arch, but once you use it in India, now you have that lotus bun on the top. Now on these spandrels you have got certain other features which could never have been imagined by the foreign architects. Look at the Taj. How many of the things which are in the Taj are foreign? Hardly any. I mean, foreign elements are much more there in Akbari Fathpur Sikri, which we take it to be, Indian. But there are much more foreign elements out there. In the Taj, the baluster column, the lotus flower. I mean, you take every of those cusp arches, where do they derive from? Buddhist architecture. Look at the base of the pillars. They are typically Chaitya style, etc., etc. But all of them mixed, amalgamated in a form which gives it a totally different style altogether. So when I use the term that Mughal architect is not plagiarizing, he is first understanding those features and then tailoring them according to the need, what is needed. And that is why all those elements are varied elements of various traditions, in fact sometimes contradictory traditions, but when they are joined together, they form a symmetrical, beautiful structure which otherwise would not have been there. That is what I mean by this.
Do we have another question? Thank you, sir. I am Akbar at the Indian Third Semester History Department in this university. Sir, my question is that you have said that the Mughal Jami Mosque was temporary in nature and it was inspired from that a little bit. So I was wondering how far it was an effort to attract a non-Muslim person because they used to construct this mosque during the time of their expansion. For instance, when they came in Bengal under Mansi, they made this mosque in Rajmahal, which was absolutely new structure in terms of the medieval Bengal Sultanate mosque. So, was it an effort to expand Islam to a non-Muslim religion or to attract those people?
Thank you for asking this question. And these days a number of people sit down. Number of people only take the Mughal Empire to be an extension of Islam. They imagine that the primary duty of the Mughal ruler was to percolate Islam down to the village. Wherever they would go, they would construct mosques and thus bring the religion out. Contrary to that, I would say that Mughals perhaps were far too secular, and religion to them, except a few cases, this will not apply on a person like Aurangzeb. Even in case of Aurangzeb, I won't label him as entire dark. I would color him grey. But as compared to Aurangzeb, the others actually have nothing to do with religion. Akbar, in fact, goes on to claim that all religions are false. Not only all religions are false, but throughout his entire 50 years of reign, the term Islam is not invoked. Abul Fazl not even once uses the term Islam. He calls it Keshe Muhammadi. Keshe Muhammadi means the sect of Muhammad. Right? Jahangir is in fact hounded by almost all the religious leaders of all the communities, whether Hindu or Shia or Sunni or Jain. We all know that he had good relations with, what was his name? That Jain priest. क्या नाम था जिसका शीरी में काम किया? हाँ, बोलो बोलो बोलो. I'm forgetting the name. Hira Vijay Suri is there, and there is one with whom there are paintings in which actually Jahangir is visiting his cave at Jadrup Gosai. And it is, his actual name is Chitrup, right? And it is not only Chitrup, but also under Shah Jahan we have references. I mean, what is actually Dara Shikoh doing? We always associate Dara with Aurangzeb. No, he is living during the period of Shah Jahan. He is doing what his father does. Right? His father is also, visiting the, non-Muslim saints and meeting them and discussing with them. Ibadat Khana discussions, everyone knows that they were started by Akbar. But only few of them know that they were continued even during the period of Jahangir and later people. A book like Majmaul Bahrain being written under the reign of an emperor who is supposed to have been introducing religion into politics, Shah Jahan. So I would say that, yes, mosques were built, no doubt. But as I said, that so were the temples. Even if we isolate the mosque, the construction of a place, one thing I should ask all of you to remember. We are living during the 21st century. Right? I am a man who was born in 20th century. All of you are 21st century. We are studying a period which is 16th, 17th centuries. Please do not reflect the ideals of our centuries back to their century. They were, different times with different ideals and different thinkings. That was not the age where even Akbar would say that he is a person who is a non-believer. He is not. He is a firm believer in God. Father Montserrat although claims that he is negating all the religions, but Akbar says that I am a Mubahir. In Akbar's period, a theologian is asked about Kabir. Who is Kabir? Reply is a Mubahir, a person who believes in God. So we are talking about very different times. Right? There is this Vrindavan temple devoted to Lord Krishna, built actually by the ruler of Amir, but financed by whom? Akbar. Even if today you go to the priests of Vrindavan, the name of the Mahan, who is actually having all those documents, he said that my only angst against Akbar is he did give us a lot of grants, but he never visited us. He is giving grants to this, he is giving grants to them. Go and do whatever you want. Akbar's son writes to his father, "Sir, there is this man, a Hindu noble, who all the time keeps praying." All the time. And when he comes to the court, he has idols inserted in his sleeves. What a prepared man. And what is the answer which he gives? Leave him. He's a Sada law, simpleton. Let him do what he wants. Another son writes to him that my soldiers, instead of hearing my orders, are always on the Janamas praying. Same reply. Oh, ignore them. Because let them practice what they want. Don't interfere. They are all fools. You are not a fool. That very well sums up what Mughals were. If you want to do some idiocy, you go ahead. You want a temple, have it. A mosque, have it with all type of features which are actually borrowed from every place on the earth. No issues. A set of mullahs is called to the court, all hostile to the emperor. They had given a fatwa against Akbar. Where we are sitting, Bengal, revolt, 1580-81. The Todarmal is being sent to quell the revolt. Revolt is quelled in Bihar and Bengal. Akbar then, after the revolt is over, wants to placate as a good ruler. What is past is past. So he sends orders to Todarmal and company that while returning, please bring these honored mullahs to visit me in the court. I have forgiven them, no issues. Now they have understood, no issues. I want to now honor them. They had this, power to oppose me, and I respect that. Just like Modi ji used to say. So they are called. You remember what he did when the cricketers, he met them in their life. So I was reminded of this. So when these poor mullahs were quite happy and they were enjoying life on a ship, they were asked to be brought by river route. यहाँ से होली से जमुना से दिल्ली. While on the route, while the ship reached Sangam, which is the deepest of the waters, Akbar ordered that a hole should be made in the water. All the pious mullahs drowned. And then Shok Sabha hold. Akbar then mourned them publicly. Oh God, such pious people. That happened once. No mosque, no temple, forget about all that debate. This is modern 21st century. Ask them to give you lobs, not mosques and temples.
So there is no more question, I think. So we proceed with our points.
As we come to the close of this enlightening session on the 10th Distinguished Lecture at the Department of History, Presidency, University, Kolkata, I am honored to express our heartfelt gratitude to all those who have contributed to the success of this event. Firstly, our sincere thanks to our distinguished speaker and gracing us with their profound insights into the making of a School of Architecture, Akbar and Fathpur Sikri. Your knowledge has truly enriched our understanding of this fascinating period in history, and we are grateful to the knowledge and wisdom you have shared with us today. We extend our gratitude to the head of the department and other faculty members of the Department of History and their relentless efforts in organizing lecture series. Your dedication to promoting intellectual discourse and academic excellence is evident in the success of this wonderful event. A special thanks to our students and audience present here. Your active participation, thoughtful questions, and engagement have added immense value to the discussion, creating an atmosphere of shared learning and discovery. We are also here to express our appreciation to the university administration, support staff, and everyone behind the scenes who work tirelessly and relentlessly to ensure the smooth execution of this event. With the support of the registrar, the development officer, the lecture would not have been successful. In conclusion, as we leave here today with a deeper understanding of the architectural legacy of Akbar and Fathpur Sikri, let us carry the spirit of intellectual curiosity and appreciation of history into our daily lives. Thank you all for being a part of this 10th Distinguished Lecture. We look forward to the future endeavors that continue to celebrate the pursuit of knowledge and academic excellence. Thank you very much.